A local politician who saw active fire in Iraq is here to talk about the latest developments happening in the Middle East.
Here now is San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. Nathan, good morning.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for being here. You have a unique perspective, obviously, a Marine veteran. You're familiar with this area. In fact, we were just talking. You've been to these bases that were the missiles. Tell us about the area, the landscape, and what it looks like.
Well, this base in particular is sprawling. It's a massive complex out in the desert, and so the notion that missiles could go and either be directed to miss American personnel on purpose or just miss their intended target is entirely plausible. But I've also been on these bases where a rocket attack on a base was just called Wednesday. It was something that happened on an almost daily basis. But it is a terrifying occurrence. You hear the alarm sounding, you scurry for the bunkers, you're trying to find safety, and you have this horrible dilemma or decision about which way do you go for something that you have no idea where it's going to hit. And so my thoughts really are with those American personnel who are on those bases, who continue to have a high level of anxiety, and then of course with their families here who are uncertain about where they may be or what they're facing. And so it is a huge escalation, and it is a real threat to our service members.
Those missiles that went in that direction, if they wanted to kill people and hurt troops, it could have happened.
I believe 100% that if Iran wanted to hit American bases, they could have hit American bases. I think that we've unfortunately escalated into a situation that we never needed to be in. President Trump inherited an Iran nuclear agreement that even if you didn't think was perfect, Iran was in compliance with. He withdrew from that agreement at a time where there were no missiles being launched against Americans from Iranian bases because he said he would get a better deal. He did not. Then he reimposed economic sanctions on a country where economic engagement is the best path to normalizing our relations and building ties between our two nations because he said it would make us safer. It did not. Then we assassinated a foreign leader of Iran, of a sovereign nation who was visiting another sovereign nation, a horrible, awful human being. But we did that because we said it would make Americans in Iraq safer. It did not. We then told Americans in Iraq, you need to flee Iraq. And now we have sirens going on telling Americans in Iraq to hide in bunkers. And it would be my hope that we could stop this. We just need to stop this nonsense. For the last 20 years, we've been at war. The war in Iraq was a colossal foreign policy disaster that has cost trillions of dollars, and a lot of my friends died. A war with Iran would be exponentially worse than a war with Iraq. And so now is a time where the president has the opportunity, no Americans were harmed, to take a pause, to take a step back. Let's get back to diplomacy. Let's get back to trying to resolve our things. And that really is my hope as someone who's served in this region and for the family members whose kids are in these areas.
I was going to ask you what you expect the president to say at 8 o'clock when he addresses the nation and the world. Take a pause is kind of what struck me. Is that what you expect from the president today? Well, because he did say if we get attacked again, he's going to respond.
You never know what to expect with someone who is so incredibly erratic and unstable. My hope would be, I don't know what to expect. My hope would be that we could say a president who ran on a promise of ending the wars in the Middle East, a president who ran on the promise of bringing our troops home, a president who since being elected has only escalated the conflict in the Middle East, and where there's 14,000 more troops in the Middle East today than when he took office. My hope would be that president would find the candidate who campaigned on ending the wars in the Middle East and finding peace. That would be my hope, and he has that opportunity. He has that opportunity. Iran made a point. He made a point. Now is the time for cooler heads to prevail. A war is not in Iran's interest. American military, we could decimate Iran.
And Iran did make a point, because we were talking earlier that they sent a message.
They did.
It was a point made, message taken.
And now it's time to take a pause. Because the reality is, look, the American military, we destroyed Saddam's army in a matter of weeks.
Sure.
But then what happens? And you have the same situation in Iran. And, you know, the reality is we went into Iraq, which is a country that has a Shia majority, that had been ruled by a Sunni. And we said we're going to have democracy. And so what did democracy yield? Well, democracy led a parliament that was Shia dominated. So it's natural that Iraq and Iran were driven closer together. Why? Because of our actions.
Yeah.
And so now we're criticizing those very actions. And we very much compounded the situation with Iraq, which ought to some way be our ally, where they're now talking about kicking out troops. My hope for the president is that he could be presidential, that he could say a war is not in anyone's interest. We're going to always do everything we can to protect Americans, and the best way we protect Americans right now is to de-escalate the situation, to calm tensions, to take a pause, and let's try and restore a peaceful outcome.
I think everybody's looking forward to see what the president says in
Let's
about
hope.
40 minutes from now. Nathan Fletcher, thank you for the time. We always appreciate it.
Good to see you both. Thank